Hello, Soundies. Welcome to our Sound for Video session. It's good to have you here, and I'm delighted to bring in my new friend, Al Morello. Al, thanks so much for joining.
Let's hope it stays that way, yeah.
The reason we're laughing is that while the intro music was playing, Al's devices disconnected from StreamYard, but we're good now. And the reason that I'm so excited to have Al on is that we have talked a little bit in the past about different spatial audio recording techniques, mixing, and the truth is that I don't have a lot of experience in that domain, but Al, as an audio engineer, does. So Al, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you kind of your background and how you got to this point?
Sure. Really quickly about myself. Audio engineer. I actually have a music degree. So I went to Los Angeles to write music, which I did. For film TV, you can look up my IMDb for that. Songwriter, you can listen to my stuff on Spotify, etc. via Huge Beats, my internet name. And wrote a lot of music for commercials without violating my NDA. You could probably guess what famous female doll I wrote the music for. So at the end of every one of those commercials, you hear 2 seconds of my music. I'm also an audio engineer. I recorded symphonies, an educator. I've taught surround recording and mixing at CRAS, the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences. And I have an immersive true crime podcast called Murdercast. So hit that like button, like and subscribe, leave me a 5-star review. No more 2-star reviews. I have plenty of those. So let's get on with it, shall we? I'm going to start off by playing a clip of one of my podcasts. So let me cue that up. And this is something I used some binaural things for, which we'll talk about in a sec. Here we go.
Murder, a primal evil that lurks in mankind. In all of us, the ability. Murder, a primal evil that lurks in mankind. In all of us, the ability. In some of us, the drive.
Sorry, technical difficulties.
Murder, a primal evil that lurks in mankind. In all of us, the ability. In some of us, the drive. Some killers are caught and brought to trial. Others escape justice to live and die in infamy. These individuals are examined here on Murdercast. Murdercast deals with mature subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
June 1977. Somewhere in a remote area of Tucson, Arizona. A brand new Mercury Cougar slowly drives down State Route 86. It is almost pitch dark, and the driver turns on the dome light to check the handwritten directions. He tunes the CB radio to channel 19, waiting for communication. Pulling off the highway in the San Juan Springs area, he stops the car. This is the place. In the trunk of the car, a cache of ammunition. On the back seat, one of his own teeth wrapped in a handkerchief. In a briefcase on the seat beside him, thousands of dollars in large bills. He zips up his bulletproof vest and scans the darkness around him, thick with the summer's humidity. Inside the holster, strapped to his side, is a .357 Magnum. He makes sure the gun is loaded, places it back in the holster, and exits the car. These were the last moments of Chuck Morgan's life. You are listening to Murdercast. Hey. Okay.
There it is.
On
There
with
it
the
is.
show.
There it is.
Yes. So that's something you can make with all this stuff. So let's on with the presentation. Navigating immersive audio. Is it cool? Do you need it? Is it for you? We'll figure this out in the next hour. These are some of the definitions we'll be going over today. So you can just kind of peruse those. But immersive, that's kind of the human experience. It's not really having anything to do with spatial audio or 3D audio or Dolby Atmos. But Dolby's kind of appropriated the term. They want you to think Dolby Atmos when you use the word immersive, so they use it all the time. But what we're actually going to be talking about is spatial audio, 3D audio, 360 audio, virtual surround. Those are all names for the same thing, and that is object-based audio and binaural rendering. And then we got surround sound, stereo, object-based, psychoacoustics, binaural, head tracking. We're going to show all that stuff today. Hold on to your hats, folks. We're going to start with channel-based audio. That's kind of what we're mostly dealing with on our day-to-day. This would be a regular stereo panning. Important to note here that there is crosstalk in this. When we're listening to speakers, you can see from the diagram, if I remove myself, both ears are hearing what one speaker is doing, right? The right speaker is hitting your right and your left ear, though not as directly. So that is crosstalk. And before I go on, what are the dots? Do you hear like 2.0, 5.1, 7.1.4? And the first number is the number of speakers in the horizontal plane. So that's the speakers around you. The second number is the number of subwoofers, where you would also route your LFE channels. And keep in mind, difference, it's just like when someone says, hey, flip your phase. We actually know as audio nerds that they mean invert their polarity. Haha. But we will,
And
make
just
a
quickly,
distinction between.
just quickly.
Yeah.
I'm looping back. I'm looping back.
Thank you, Curtis.
No worries. And then the question, when you say LFE, what is LFE?
So that stands for low frequency effects, and that is a channel in your DAW that you route to the physical subwoofer speaker. So that'll be like earthquake sound effects that you put in there.
Got it.
Yeah, so that's the difference between the subwoofer, which is the physical speaker, and then the LFE channel in your DAW. And then 7.1.4, so the last number is the number of height speakers, so speakers above your head or attached to the ceiling. Channel-based. This is kind of your older traditional format. So stereo 5.1, mono 7.1, even up to 22.2. Where would you find that? Maybe like at a ride at Disneyland, when you're going through a roller coaster and there's speakers all around you. Important distinction here is rendering happens prior to delivery. So you're done with your movie or your song or whatever it is you're delivering, and you render that. You bounce your left and right channel or your 6 channels if it's 5.1, and you send that off to whoever is going to be listening to it or making a DVD or putting it up on streaming. So that rendering is kind of fixed. It's done. Nothing else can change. It's baked in there, as they say. So when you record, when you render a stereo file, you can't play it back on a 5.1 system. Well, you could, but you'd only hear the left and right channels. So you have to make a separate mix for that 5.1 if you so desired. And each channel of audio is assigned to a fixed speaker layout. So if you look at this mic array here in the corner, that's something you could use to record classical music, for example. And you would pan directly those signals, left, center, right, left surround, right surround, to the speakers in the top corner. Of course, you could pan a mono signal, from the different speakers if you wanted to. But once you render that, again, it's fixed. There's no changing that. And the delivery for this channel-based is separate mono or multi-channel wave files. Next, what is object-based audio? That's the latest craze that's sweeping the nation right now. That's when we're mixing for a space and not a fixed speaker layout anymore. So if you look at this view from the Dolby render, there's no speakers. It's just a space, and you're panning those objects in space. So you're not thinking, oh, I want this coming out of the left speaker. I want it, coming out of the right surround speaker. You just pan it wherever you think it should be, and it is there. Important to note, Dolby Atmos is a hybrid of channel-based and object-based audio. So what we're looking at, all the dots on the screen right now, those are objects. For some reason, the Dolby renderer only shows objects. But yeah, there's also a bed. And a bed, if we go back to this slide, is the fixed mix that we made with the 5.1. So we could put a 5.1 bed in Dolby Atmos and then pan our objects around in space around them. So the bed, which is that channel-based format, is really meant to kind of be fixed, kind of stays stagnant there. And then the objects are meant to be panned around. So in Dolby Atmos, you can have up to 128 channels that are available. And the first 10 are reserved for the bed. And that's channel-based. And that is 7.1.2. So you have two speakers up above you. I don't know why they decided on that format, but that's what it is. And the remaining channels are reserved for objects or beds. You could have more beds also. So you could have a mono object that you pan around. You could have a stereo object that you pan. You could also have a 5.1 or even a 7.1.4 object and pan that around. Okay, object-based. And this would be format. The big one here in the US is Dolby Atmos, but in Europe they have RO 3D. There's also Sony 360 Reality Audio and MPEG-H, which is a really interesting one. And we were talking about this. The rendering for objects occurs at point of consumption. So remember when you were sitting at your DAW and you finish your project and then you bounce the WAV files and sent them? Okay, so that's when you rendered, right? But now when we deliver a Dolby master file, an ADM file, that gets rendered in real time at the point of consumption. So that would be your iPhone if you're listening to it, spatial audio on your phone, or your hi-fi receiver that has Atmos in your living room, or wherever that end user is listening to it. So that happens then. And the reason why that's kind of a big deal is because it intelligently changes from whatever it was mixed to whatever it is playing through. So if I mixed it, I have a 7.1.4 system at my place. So if I mixed it in that system, I could still play it in a huge movie theater and it would sound right. And then you could also listen to it on headphones or in just stereo at your house, and that would also sound great. So the key takeaways here on that second arrow: beds are fixed, objects are panned in space, and adapt to speaker layout. And the delivery of this is a multi-channel broadcast wave file with fixed bed and metadata for object panning and size. And that's the ADM I was talking about, audio definition model. So that is like a huge wave file that you deliver with your mix on it. And that has your bed. We'll take a look at what that looks like in a second. And then your objects, which are treated separately from the bed. And that has metadata, which tells the end device that you're playing it through, where it is in the space, how big the object is, how close, how near, how far it is, and where it's moving. Another choice you have, rather than the ADM, is you could render it binaurally, and that is for listening on headphones specifically. Something to understand about, if I can pan stuff in the bed, why don't I just use that versus making it an object? And here's kind of the biggest difference, I think. So imagine this is a big theater, and I have a pretty small studio, so it's just the size of a bedroom. So if I pan something in my studio, it might sound right to me, but then when you play it in a big theater like this, the left surround, as you can see in a channel-based playback, covers the entire wall. So all those red speakers, if you put a signal kind of in the corner where the red dot is, all those speakers on the left wall will be playing the same thing. And you can see some of the speakers at the bottom there also will be playing. In contrast, if you look to the right, the object-based playback will have more localization. So you can make it come out of just one distinct place, depending on how big the space is. So I hope that makes sense. It took me a while to figure that out.
And
Curtis.
that's not representing the overhead speakers, right? Because there's some more localization you can do overhead as well, right?
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a really big distinction. Just objects are more flexible. Some people work with all objects and some people work with all beds. There's no wrong way. I think you're kind of defeating the purpose if you're not using objects. But yeah, these are fun things to play around with. Okay, Dolby Master, ADM, audio definition model. Right, but what does it look like? Well, I'm glad you asked. This is an ADM file that I will be playing for you in a minute. And I made it really simple. I put everything in the bed except for wings flapping. So I kind of panned everything normally like a band would be. I didn't want to put anything weird up in the speakers, like in the height speakers in the ceiling, like drums or anything. So I put some beach sound effects and seagull sounds. And so I decided to put the wings flapping in the height speakers, and I automated that to kind of fly around. So when you open it, you can see it'll just play the bed channel, the orange track, as is. And then all your objects, which is the green track right there in this project, that'll have metadata associated with it, where it'll tell it where to pan and what to do with that audio, depending on what space it's being played back in. Okay, how could I get into Dolby Atmos / object-based audio? Well, if you have a modern DAW, most likely it's built in there already, so you should look into how that is done. All the processes are different depending on the manufacturer, by the way. Another one I suggest, although I use Cubase and Nuendo, and that is integrated inside Dolby Atmos, Render is integrated inside those DAWs. I also use the Fiedler Audio Dolby Atmos Composer, and they have a free version, so you can use that. It's actually a great ecosystem. You just put it on all your tracks, the beam, which you see the picture of right there, and hit the on button, and it sends it to the Dolby Atmos render, which you insert on your master bus. And then you can pan your stuff like you like and export your Dolby Atmos. All right, we're moving kind of quickly, but have a lot to get through. But yes, ask any questions, and I'll try to answer them as best as possible. Ambisonic. Hi. Oh, sure, I will in a second. Thank you.
I figured, yeah, we're going to get to that, right? Cool.
Yes, hopefully. I like doubled the amount of slides I had from the last time I made this. Let's see. Ambisonic is interesting. This is used in video games, YouTube, VR, Facebook 360. And ambisonics is a spherical representation or recording of WXYZ info. And that is, so that'd be like your omni, like your mono track, your left, right is your X, your front, back is your Y, and then your up, down is your Z info. And if you watched Curtis's video on mid-side, that's a great primer on all this stuff because ambisonics is basically the first couple of patterns. I'm sorry, mid-side is the first couple patterns of the first ambisonic order, which we'll get to in a second. Interesting about ambisonics, the rendering is speaker agnostic. So any speaker layout you can think of, you can decode it to that. As you can see from the picture, it even has speakers below you, which the Dolby spec does not have. By the way, it only has the upper hemisphere. So that's what's cool. You can have sound coming from below you in an ambisonic speaker array. The channels, higher orders yield better localization. And that's basically more capsules in the microphones, which I'll show you in a second. Delivery is also multi-channel ambisonic wave file for decoding in your DAW. Channel-based render or a binaural render. So you can decode it however you want. And I'll say these things aren't exclusive to each other. You can record an ambisonic sound, just like a stereo sound or whatnot. You can take your ambisonic sound, put it in a Dolby project, and then export binaural for headphones or your ADM file. So you can mix and match these things. Definitely keep that in mind. It's not all or nothing. Ambisonic orders, I don't want to spend too much time. I don't want to get too scientific here, but these are kind of the patterns that you see from the microphones we're going to see in a sec. The first order is just that omni mono pattern, and then you can see the first two kind of front, back, up and down, left, right of the first order. So first order is these three plus this top one. So those four patterns, and we'll see that the ambisonic microphone has 4 capsules. Second order, third order, and there are ambisonic microphones that have more and more capsules like this. We kind of stop at third order because it gets a little impractical to have a microphone with 120 capsules on it. But the takeaway here is the higher the order, the more localization, the more precise your recording will be. Here are some ambisonic microphones. The Rode NTSF1 and the Zoom H3VR, those are first order ambisonic mics. Those have 4 capsules. The Core Octamic has 8 capsules. And the Zelia ZM1 has 19 capsules. And that is connected via a USB cable to your laptop. And that's how you make recordings on that. So one thing that is cool about ambisonics recordings is that you can derive your own virtual coincident mic patterns. So if you see, yeah, if you see something like that Core Octamic with all those capsules, you can do the same thing Curtis did with his mid-side video, but you can decode it in all sorts of ways and in many more directions. So look, you can have everything from an omni to a cardioid to a Blumline, figure eight, all this stuff, even up to a 5.1 and a 7.1.4. So you put your microphone in the space you want to record, hit record, bring it back to your studio. And this is the Voyage Audio mic software. It's another manufacturer of ambisonic microphones. And you can use their software to derive any of these patterns or speaker layouts. So it's very cool tech. All right, how can I get into ambisonic mixing and recording? Probably is built into your DAW. I know DaVinci Resolve just started supporting more ambisonic things. There are free plugins that I gave Curtis a list of resources, and I listed a lot of free plugins you can get. And when I play some demos, I'll show you the ones I use, and I have links in there also. And look at this, Saramonic SRVR. Let me switch to this camera. So this is the mic I used for the recording I'm going to play for you. This is the Sennheiser VR mic, the Ambio VR mic, and that is a first order ambisonic microphone. And that was $1,200, by the way, not cheap. But for $100, I just bought this Saramonic mic, which looks very similar. And I can't wait to do tests with this. I will let you guys know for sure to see what that sounds like in comparison to a $1,200 microphone. And here is that to prove to you, $100. It comes with a shock mount, windscreen, the cable. So yeah, very cheap, fun way to get into that. I did hear someone say that the capsules are not spaced correctly. That was another ambisonic microphone manufacturer though. So anyway, for $100, just kind of have some fun with it. Why not? Christmas sing-along. So now I will play for you a recording I made of a choir this past Christmas, using that Sennheiser Ambio VR mic. And you'll see the first one that you'll hear is the ambisonic mic decoded into binaural. The second one will be that same microphone decoded into stereo. And the third one is just an ORTF configuration. Let's see what happens.
1, 2, here we go.
Okay, and that was with a Mix Pre 10. Thanks to Curtis for helping me purchase every iteration of the Mix Pre. Every time he came out with a new review, I'd buy that one. Anyway, hopefully you could hear the differences between the spatialization. And by the way, the reason I titled it "Is This For You" is because I sent these recordings to some friends of mine who are also audio engineers. One of them really liked the ambisonic microphone. The other one couldn't stand it. He said there were all sorts of phase issues, and he preferred the ORTF, just regular stereo miking configuration. So, hey, it's all just preference. Let's get into binaural rendering and binaural recording. Binaural is different from stereo because this is specifically for headphones, whereas stereo is specifically for physical speakers. So when you wear headphones, there is no crosstalk happening. And that's kind of how we hear with our two ears, is what binaural is trying to achieve. And if you look at the first picture in the corner, ORTF was kind of created, was spaced 17 centimeters apart, and that's kind of the average human spacing between their ears. So that gives you a great stereo image. It's one of my favorite ways to record. That and mid-side, it just works for everything. But as you can see, there's nothing in between those two microphones separating it. And as humans, our head gets in the way of sound waves. As you can see from the diagram, if we have a source off to the side, there's a direct sound going into one ear, and then reflections going into the other ear. And those are cues that give us information, and that's how we can tell if something is far away, if something is to our left, to our right, or even behind us. HRTF, that stands for head-related transfer function, and that's how a sound's frequency profile changes due to our unique characteristics. So all our ears are shaped differently. I don't know, my brain is maybe denser than yours, my shoulders are broader or not as broad as yours, and all those things affect the way we hear, right? We even hear through our bones. Isn't that, Curtis? Back me up on this.
Absolutely. I have I got a custom HRTF, and it made a pretty substantial difference in playback through headphones.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Very interesting.
I've never met anyone that did that. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I told you guys. I was right. Okay. Binaural microphones. Check this out. The Neumann dummy head, $10,000, huh? There's also cheaper options. The 3DO FS Pro 2. But you can see these things are made to look like human ears. And that's what gives it that sound of actually being in that space where your head is in the way between the other microphone. $10,000 for a dummy head. Who's the dummy now? I know you're thinking of, okay, well, I want to get into binaural stuff. How can I do it without spending $10,000? Well, you can use the tools that are built into your DAW. I know Nuendo and Cubase has binaural tools. There's also free plugins like Dear VR Pro and 3DX, which I'll play you an example of next. The Sennheiser Ambio Smart Headset, that's this thing. Very interesting product. I think Curtis has one. Kind of strange. So they're noise canceling earbuds, but also they have a microphone on the earbuds, so you can walk around recording what you're hearing. Yeah, so that's what those look like. I haven't had a chance to play with these yet either. And that is Lightning connector, by the way. I think they discontinued them, but you can still find them on eBay and some other sources. And you can also, like this AI generated picture did, put some microphones in your ears. People have taped Omni lavalier mics in their ears and done recordings that way. They also sell little microphones you can place in your ears. And here is that Ambio smart headset from Sennheiser. I think I paid $50 for mine. But yeah, you can see, cheap way to get into it and just record it on your older iPhone with the Lightning connection. Stereo versus binaural. Oh, I wanted to clarify something real quick, and that is, you don't have to record with a microphone like that, to a binaural microphone that looks like a head, to have binaural audio. You can use a binauralizer plug-in, and that's what I'm going to show you right now. These are some demos I did of sound effects. So you'll hear footsteps and then roars. And the first one will be mono. The second time you hear it, it'll be panned left and right in your standard panner in your DAW. The third time is Deer VR, which is a spatializer, a reverb, and a binaural render. And the third one is 3DX, which is a binaural render. So this is what I did for my podcast. I just did a regular stereo mix of a lot of the music and sound effects. And then the things I really wanted to stick out, like the footsteps or the birds flying around, maybe the car door, I think I did. I panned it using one of these tools. So let me cue that up. Okay. And if you're wondering, yeah, I did. I recorded those samples right after having Mexican food. That's how I was able to do those recordings. But hopefully you were able to hear the difference between normal panning and then something you could do with a binauralizing plugin. Curtis, anything
No, I don't.
need
I'm still working through the Mexican food bit. Still working on that.
Yeah, I'm glad you were muted during that. But next thing, head tracking. So head tracking is a technology that detects and responds to head movement. Look at this guy's banging his head to heavy metal music here. If you look at the picture beside him, you'll see that his movements are being mimicked by the head tracker. And that's because he is the guy that invented this particular head tracker. It's the one I own. It's only also $100. And that is the Supperware head tracker. And you can just put it on any headphones. And this adds another dimension of realism by emulating the experience of sitting in front of real speakers. In other words, the speakers do not move with your head. So when you have headphones on and you turn your head, the headphones move with you. So it's as if the speakers are moving with you. But with head tracking, it's like you're in a room with a 7.1.4 or whatever configuration you're in. As you move your head, imagine you're facing forward, you turn your head to the right. Now your center speaker is going directly into your left ear. So that's kind of what, okay, let me switch sides. This is throwing me off, too much movement. That's what that is mimicking. And I will show you that. I'll play you a head tracking demo, and it's also a Dolby Atmos demo in that this is a mix I created in Dolby Atmos, a music mix. That's the one where I placed the wings flapping in the height speakers. So it's this one. But if you can, I couldn't enlarge the window. If you see the little head tracking icon kind of in the center, if you do the same movements, follow along. I slowly turned left and then center and then slowly turned right again. If you follow those movements, you will be able to kind of get an idea of what head tracking does.
Sun-kissed curve. Spent a whole summer vacation surfing Malibu Pier. As the season drew to a close, I wish that you could stay here. I know you're gonna have to leave me when the summer is through. But don't forget me, summer girl. You won't regret me, summer girl. My summer girl. My summer girl. My summer girl.
All right, so hopefully you were able to see the object kind of panning there in the ceiling, and then hear the difference in sound quality. Okay, let's finish up here. We're at the home stretch. Yeah, I really wanted to drive this point home. You can mix and match ambisonic, channel-based, object-based, and output it to whatever format is best for you. Probably some sort of binaural format. But I could do an ambisonics mix and export it to binaural and tell you it's a Dolby Atmos mix, and you wouldn't know the difference. You wouldn't know. Anyway, so these are all things you can do. Like I said, you can have a regular stereo project in your DAW and use something like the free Deer VR Micro binauralizer plugin and make your sound binaural. Keep in mind that it'll sound a little weird if it's played on physical speakers, but I do a podcast. Most people listen on headphones, so I felt comfortable doing that. Okay, so what is all this stuff good for? Well, here's some things. Besides the obvious, video games and movies, this thing in the corner, they had a spatial, there's actually a immersive technology school here in Arizona where I reside at ASU, and they have, I went to an open house. They had all sorts of art projects and VR video games that people created. They also have Dreamscape Learn there, and that's where they're integrating VR and spatial audio into education. You can see the Signal Man and the Coldest Case Audible has a lot of Dolby Atmos or spatial 3D audio books. Different from just stereo in that the voices do seem to sound like they're coming like front left and then maybe behind you, and the atmospheres seem more real. I have 4 dogs, so I walk a lot and listen to these things. And sometimes, someone's whispered in my ear and it freaks me out. I turn around like, what? Oh, it's just the binaural, audiobook I'm listening to. So there's tons of those. There's even podcasts like Hindsight, The Day Before. That's a newer one. Quarantined. My friend did this one. And I'll have you know, all these things, spatial things, are much more labor intensive than just a regular stereo mix. He told me he almost had a nervous breakdown keeping up with the schedule. So it takes a lot more work to do it, but you can see the differences in sound if that's what you're going for. It might be worth it to you. And then really a lot of the pioneering work was done by the BBC. They released some productions that were binaural, and they sound really great. I suggest you check them out. They're in the resources links that I made. The Stone Tape and The Ring they have in binaural. Very creepy to listen to. And of course, music. And Doctor Who. If you're not a nerd, you may not know who Doctor Who is. I had to Google it because I'm a cool guy. But Doctor Who, the BBC put out an episode of Doctor Who binaurally. So it's made for headphones. You're supposed to listen to it on headphones. And that is a cool experience if you can find it. It took some hunting for me to find it and download it. And of course, Dolby Atmos, which are really pushing on consumers, which may or may not be a good thing. I was talking to Curtis earlier, and I heard someone put it like, Dolby Atmos music is like a solution to a problem that never existed. It's not as if consumers were protesting in the streets with signs chanting, "We want spatial music." So we'll see. I mean, most people, I think if you turned it on in their iPhones, they wouldn't know the difference if you turn it off and on. They might not even care. So that's something to keep in mind. And lastly, keep in touch. Here's my LinkedIn. Here is my kind of work website. That's where I do a lot of I post my audio recordings, an expert recording. I do my day-to-day stuff on LinkedIn, so you can see all my projects I've been doing there. MyName.com is all my music and film, TV, commercial stuff I've done. And of course, my true crime podcast. So I hope that has been educational for you and fun in some respects. But don't hesitate to reach out to me if you want me to do a comparison with these 2 mics and even the 2 mics and the Ambio smart headset. All right.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that comparison between those mics, between the Saramonic and the Sennheiser, because I was one of those smart guys that bought the Sennheiser as well. So, and of course the Rycote gear, because once you start using it outdoors, you've got to have wind protection. It has a little grill, but that's not great for
You got to.
wind.
You have to.
Yeah.
Have you used it, Curtis? Have you
have.
done any recording? And
I have.
what did you think?
It was spatial, definitely. So there's a series of things you have to do in post to decide how you want to take that information and then how you're going to present it to whoever you're presenting it to. But I think I used Dear VR is what I was using in that case to make a binaural mix, and it was convincing. It was quite convincing because what I did is Danny, the resident paleontologist, we went out to a site where we were looking for fossils, and so it was a quarry. And when you walked around, you're walking on like little rocks. And so it was very crunchy, just like the footsteps sample that you played earlier. And so I was able to walk around the microphone and walk off into the distance a little bit and back. And once it was rendered in binaural, it was quite convincing, quite interesting. It was fun.
Yeah. So you know about how more labor intensive it is. You have to really kind of want it for some reason. And then have you done anything else with it since that one day of recording the sand?
I'm really sorry, Al. I haven't done a single thing with it.
No,
since
no.
then.
This is so I'm very interested in this stuff, but I'm also very practical, and that's why I named it. I named it a few things. I think I named it "Is it for you?" or "Do you need it?" or whatever it is. This presentation, but I did think this isn't for everybody. So when you listen to books on tape that are done in Dolby Atmos. Books on tape. God, okay, boomer. Audiobooks that are done with Dolby Atmos, Curtis. What do you think? Would you be missing out on anything if it was just in stereo?
Yeah, so there are two things from my perspective. Number one, first of all, you have to have a good story. If the story is good, that's like a foundation. You got to have a good story. Secondly, is the production of the actual spatial experience. I have listened to some audio dramas that were really well done, but I think they were just stereo. I think, or possibly probably binaural, maybe binaural, but they weren't super. There was a bed. Every once in a while, you could hear like one character kind of off to the right a little bit or off to the left a little bit. But they didn't go all in on spatial. It didn't sound like. But I think if the two elements are both well done together, then I think it can be good. I think to me, the more interesting kind of application for spatial audio is film, movies. And to me, I also don't think it's going to, like, Al, you and I were talking about beforehand. Remember 3D from early 2000s? Like, you go into Best Buy, every single TV there had 3D capability, and you had to put the glasses on, and everybody went out and bought their 3D flat panel TVs and watched one or two movies in 3D and never used it again. And now you go to Best Buy, none of the TVs have 3D. Zero.
Yeah.
So I think
there was
the
a time
secret is
you couldn't buy a TV that did not have the 3D. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the secret is that it has to be straightforward. It has to be unintrusive for people to experience it. Binaural is one way. I think that's, obviously a lot of content consumption now is taking place with headphones of some sort or earbuds. But another way, like if I wanted to enjoy a movie in my family room or whatever, to me it has to be easy. You can't expect people to go install 714 systems, like actually suspend speakers up in the ceiling and then have all these surrounds and blah 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 and low frequency effects. I think the sound bars have a better chance of making inroads, and I think you see a lot of those now available. But it's not like the same experience. Like it's not the same experience, right? It's like yeah.
Yes. I should have had a slide on that, but those sound bars are interesting. Rather than put 12 speakers for a 7.1.4 in your living room hanging from your ceiling, those go across, the bottom of your TV, and they have speakers pointed upward, angled up. The sound wave hits your ceiling and then bounces back to you on the couch. and then they have like a calibration system that they make you go through. From what I've heard, it's pretty convincing for what it is, but that's another cheap way to get into something like that. Like you said, not as intrusive. But I don't know. Listening on headphones, something that should be in speakers. I think people don't. I think people are still listening to 64 kilobits per second and mono MP3s, and they don't care.
A lot of people don't care, but I think there is something that it's fun. I mean, it's let's be honest, it's nerdy fun, and I know you're cool, but I think you're also a little bit of a nerd. And I don't mean that
Had you fooled. I actually knew who Doctor Who was before Googling him, so
I knew
yes,
you
I
did.
admit it.
Yeah, I wasn't fooled. But so anyway, so there was one question that we should go back to, and this is just maybe a clarification. What's the difference between binaural and ambisonic? Often get the terms mixed up.
Sure. Ambisonic is a way of capturing a spherical sound field, right? And presenting that. And binaural, that is a way of listening back only on headphones with the sound treated in a way so it's as if you had microphones in your ears and your head was in the way of the sound. So you can, if something's binaural, just like in the video examples, you could tell when something's coming, farther away and then getting closer and then going behind you and away. There are cues like reflections and reverb and EQ changes that cue you into those. And also binaural, you can render to binaural from anything. You can have an ambisonic file and render it to binaural. You can have a Dolby Atmos and render it to binaural. You can have a stereo project and then with a binaural plugin inside of it and render that to stereo, and that'll have that binaural information in there if you use something like Dear VR.
Okay. So is ambisonic just a capture method then?
No, it's also the way you work with it, and that it's speaker agnostic, so you can take that ambisonic signal and make it into whatever you want. And then you can go to something like a museum installation that has that sphere of speakers and play it through that. So that is an ambisonic speaker array that is played through.
Okay. Got it. So ambisonic, okay, that makes sense. I generally think of ambisonic as a way to capture and to process, or, like to mix. And then if you had one of those spheres, you could play it back as an, full ambisonic. Correct. Like that. But a lot of times you would render it for Atmos, or you would render it, like a 714, like an Atmos playback system, or for binaural or something like that, typically.
Yes, okay. Most people are going to render it binaurally. And just for clarification, you can put a stereo file into your ambisonics project and, pan it however you want and then render it binaurally. So it doesn't have to be something done with those special microphones.
Okay, cool. Here's a nerdy question from one of my friends. What's the pickup pattern of our ears?
I would think omni, but what do I know?
I would say super wide, super cardioid.
Wow.
Maybe.
Okay.
No, what I'm saying is because
stand down.
No. I'm just guessing here, but the whole concept of binaural is that the reality is your head is in between your ears. So when a sound comes from my right, it hits my right ear first, but it also picks up in my left ear, right? But at time delay, and probably some of the frequencies roll off because it's on the opposite side of my head, and vice versa. I don't know. I'm guessing.
I don't know either.
Audio buff, we don't have a qualified answer for you. But
I like that I made someone think, by the way.
That's really good.
That's more
That's
than I
really
do.
Can you, here's another question that I get a lot. Al, which microphone should I buy to make 7.1 mixes? I want to make 7.1 surround mixes. What mic should I get?
You don't need any microphone. Well, you need one microphone to record something, but you can record a mono signal and put it in you can record like a guitar mono, and then you record drums with that mono mic, and then you record bass with a mono microphone, put those all in your project, and then create a 714 project, right? So you don't need something like, I could go back. There is actually, let me see, 7.1.4 mic array. It's like $2,500 for this thing. And this is specifically for 7.1.4.
This would be more for capturing a bed, though, wouldn't it? More likely?
Correct. Can I?
If you share your screen, we can pop it up there.
Yeah. Present. Share screen. This one. No. This one. Share. Can you see?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, this is your left, center, right, left surround, right surround, back surround, and these are the top 4 height speakers. So if this is his question, you could get kind of all matching microphones and buy this thing, or create something yourself. I've seen people make similar things out of microphone boom extensions, for example, or PVC piping, and they attach their microphones to here. And that you would put in a space like a church, and then have choir perform, and then you would pan those. That would be channel based, right? Like you'd pan each microphone to each corresponding speaker in your 7.1.4 system. So that'd be like a bed, like you said. But like I said, you could record something mono and then just move that wherever you want it. And that could be in your bed or in your object if it's going to be flying around.
Okay, cool. All right. We do have some resources, and I'll check with you after here just to make sure I have all the links in the description of the video here so people can get to all of that stuff. Is there anything else? I know we're at time. Thank you so much for your time. Anything you wanted to say here at the end before we wrap up?
No, just really reach out if you want to play with some of this stuff. I'd be happy to send you more files, or I could do some tests, or we can work on something immersive together. I'm still looking to experiment and have fun with this stuff.
Very cool. Thank you so much for coming today to share all of this. It's a new world to me. It's really exciting to see what's possible out there. And also, it's good to know that there's a little bit more work involved when you're doing object-based audio of some sort, spatial audio of some sort. So,
okay, Curtis, Get on out there and make some good spatial audio, huh?
All right. Thank you so much.
I stole your tagline.
You did. Good work. You deserve it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right.
Bye.
Take care. Talk soon.